Hey guys, welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast, episode 52, and I'm Rob, one half of the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast, and today, joined by the co-host of the show, Rich.
Hey, what's going on, Rob? We all good?
Yeah, very good, my thanks, my friend. We've had a little bit of a delay getting this bad boy out here, so we had a few audio issues. In other words, Rob broke the pins on the back of his microphone, but we've got a brand new microphone. It's got a little bit of a different design at the back, which means it won't happen again, which makes me a happy boy.
It took a long time to get that. Did you actually just make it yourself? Did you forge it out of the the iron from a mine in New Zealand or something?
I actually did, and I looked back on my time at the Magnus School and thought, oh, I did something similar in DT.
CDT? Oh, that's amazing. I can't believe you brought that back. I just made a key ring. That was about it. Oh, and table skills, bar skittles. I made one of those as well.
Oh, that's
I think it was a bit worrying, like a 13-year-old making bar skittles. There should have been a warning at that point, shouldn't there?
He's going to end up in the horse and jockey, that lad.
Exactly. Disturbing. So, well, it's good to be back anyway, mate. There's been so much. There's always so much. We always say that, don't we? But we've kind of missed a few bits, haven't we? Feels like, the end of the England-India, obviously, series and just looking ahead of where we are at the minute, the county championship season coming to an end. There's loads, isn't there? So I'm sure we'll get caught up soon, but I'm so pleased you've got a new microphone, Rob. I've still got my rubbish little headphones, so, whatever.
It all works. It all works. And you're damn right, there is a hell of a lot to catch up on, and the next podcast will look at the England-India series, and we'll look at the T20 action, the CPL action, the Asia Cup action. Follow us on social media. Cheap plug to all the results and stuff that's coming out on there. So at Leading Edge Pod, go and follow us on Twitter. But today, we're taking a bit of a Blackcaps feel to the world. So we're joined for about a half-hour interview. It's pre-recorded, but we're going to flick into it in a second by authentic 100% Kiwi Will Cavanagh, who I actually worked with and used to play cricket against back in Nottinghamshire. Way back, probably about 15, 20 years ago now, and he takes a look at what's going on in the world of the Blackcaps with the change of head coach, Mike Hesson stepping down, Gary Stead coming in as head coach, and takes a bit of a preview look to what is a subcontinent sort of feel, summer that they've got coming up with Bangaldesh, Sri Lanka, and India, the big ticket item again, over in New Zealand. So, Rich, it's an interesting conversation. You've listened to the conversation, and before we press play on Will, I just want to get a couple of takes on your thoughts on a few things that's going on with this Blackcaps team, because Blackcaps historically haven't always been the strongest team in the world. It's a small country, 4.5 million people, most of which are in Auckland. Hey, Auckland. And they struggle for that depth. They might get one or two quality players coming through, but where do you think this New Zealand team kind of ranks in terms of the last 20, 30 years of Blackcaps cricket that you've seen?
Oh, the last 20, 30 years, that's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, individuals have had some greats over the years, and they, far too many to go into. But at the moment, it just feels like, they've embraced that whole kind of new ethos of how to play the game. Brendan McCullum kind of led, and I'm sure there's one or two people in the background that's also kind of allowed them to take this style of play forward that a lot of other countries around the world and teams around the world want to take on board. That aggressive, no fear cricket, played in the right spirit. So they're in a really good place. They're an exciting team. They're a team that I really enjoy watching. It doesn't matter what format it is. They're a little bit box office, aren't they? They're not necessarily full of the biggest names on the planet, but there's just something about them. They're just exciting to watch. And you talk about they're not always got a lot of depth, but they are starting to get to the point now, aren't they? I mean, just take the bowling, for example. Who is it? Bolt, Southey, Wagner, should we say? Generally, the three-seam attack. You could switch that up now. Matt Henry's just had a ridiculous summer in England, hasn't he? Taking about 400 wickets. Probably you've been a little bit over the top there. Adam Milne, Lockie Ferguson, some genuine wheels coming through as well. So suddenly, a bit like India, with their seam attack, they could put a couple of different lineups out in the seam attack and not really miss a beat. I think New Zealand are getting to that point, So strength in depth is getting there, exciting, play in the right way. They stack up against anybody, don't they, in the last 20, 30 years. Maybe there's been better, individuals coming through over those years, but I think all in all, as a team, they're looking strong. Looking strong, a good future. It's going to be a strange winter for them, though, isn't it? Playing against 3 subcontinent teams.
Yeah, you say winter, it's New Zealand summer. They're playing in England winter. But it is a strange one. Poor old Bangladesh are over here, it feels like every single year. Sri Lanka every other year. And I think that's part of the problem that Blackcaps cricket has had over the years. They do quite often end up with second-tier test nations coming over to New Zealand for series. So it's good to see India over, even though there isn't any Test match cricket, there's big box office, T20, one-day action. And you're damn right when you talk about Blackcaps' success. This team, record equaling 13 undefeated Test matches at home over the course of a 4-year span under Mike Hesson, mate. It's just incredible success. And you're right, they are box office. You watch white ball cricket, you want to watch Martin Guptill at the top of the order. You want to watch Kane Williamson skillfully work the ball around and get 100 off 80 balls without breaking a sweat. They're an incredible team, and they ran England all the way over in England previously and stuffed England when England were over here last winter for England.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a shame, really, that they don't have more, longer Test series. It'd be nice to see a long Test series, involved with New Zealand. Like we've had 4 with India, with 5, obviously, with Australia. It's such a shame that we can't have those long Test series where you really see teams develop against each other over a period of time, rather than just a quick, before you realise it started, it's over, 2-match or 3-match Test series. So it is a shame, that is. But yeah, I mean, that's incredible. 13 Test bounce, isn't it? I mean, that's what they're going to be replacing Mike Hesson. He's done bits, hasn't he, since he's been in charge. So it's a massive role to fill for Gary Stead, or Stead. What are we calling him?
Gary, I'm calling him Gary Steed, but I could well be wrong. Just like Will said on the podcast, I'll press play on in a second, is you are absolutely right to not know who he is. A lot of Kiwis don't know who he is.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a name I had to do a little bit of research on, I'll be absolutely honest. But the man's got a good CV. He's not been plucked out of anywhere, has he? He definitely probably deserves this role. And I'm sure if he was in an England county setup and doing the same things in English county cricket, we'd all over here in England know exactly who he was, and we'd all be kind of saying, "Yep, this is a good man for the job." But I'm sure Will can tell us more about the incoming Gary Steed and the outgoing Mike Hesson than I can.
He definitely can. Let's kick straight into it. This is the interview with Will Cavanagh. So, as just discussed with Rich, I'm joined today by Will Cavanagh, authentic Kiwi.
That's true.
100% Kiwi, 100% Kiwi born and bred. And today we're going to sit and we're going to talk a bit about Blackcaps cricket. We're going to talk about Mike Hesson stepping down as Blackcaps coach and Gary Steed coming in as the new Blackcaps coach from the 1st of September onwards. So, Will, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
So we go back quite a way. There's a big black period in the middle where we didn't know each other, so to speak, but if you roll back to probably early 2000s, it's probably when we first met.
That would be right. I was working in the UK at the time and playing for the Beaver Cricket Club, a traditional rival of your old stomping ground.
It was.
We'd probably played against each other for about 3 or 4 years, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I can remember. I never scored any runs against Beaver.
Nope.
And I never really took any wickets against Beaver.
Nope.
And I can remember getting run out about 3 overs into batting. I sold myself down the river and got sent back by the other guy, and I was run out for none. So I never really did anything worthwhile.
It's always the days you get run out for none that you can remember. If you'd scored a great 30, that would be lost in the annals of time, I'm sure. Yeah, it would be.
And I can remember you scoring some runs. We was playing on a wet deck at Beaver one day. I think I got the first batsman out early doors, probably first over with a short one, and then I think you got 80 and 90, and you guys pretty much just won the game from there.
Yeah, well, we did have some very good players on some occasions at Beaver. But that's a long time ago now. We're all old.
Yeah, we are.
and a great 30 is suddenly a magnificent 60, and a great 60 probably turned into 100 by the time I get out of here today.
Yeah, because, that short ball that bowled, I'm sure that was about 95 mile an hour, whistling past his nose, just caught the glove and through to the keeper. It wasn't a 65 mile an hour long op at all. Not at all.
And the keeper would have been standing back damn near the boundary at Beaver, because it's only about a 40-metre boundary straight behind towards the old tree.
Yeah, exactly. The guy had to wear 2 pairs of gloves, it was that fast.
Absolutely.
So it was good times. So, all the way back, June the 7th, so it's quite a while since Mike Hesson stepped down from his role as New Zealand coach, with a year to go on his contract, which, obviously he's already spoke publicly about the fact that he does want to step down at the end of his contract. He's missed his family. He was formerly doing some coaching work with Kenya and cited security issues around his family and missing his family as points for stepping away. What do you make of the point that he's gone a year before the World Cup? Because it's always a 4-year cycle, isn't it?
Look, I think with coaches, much like players, you come to a period where you just get tired.
Yeah.
And if he's reached that period, he's probably done the right thing by not only himself and his family to step away, but also by the New Zealand side that he has put a lot into over the last 4 years, because it's going to give whoever comes in, now we know that's Gary Stead now, but at the time we didn't know, it's going to give Gary Stead a time to get his feet under the door properly and actually set his stall out for what he wants to do, and he's got a year to do it, as opposed to, pulling out a month beforehand and a new bloke comes in and it all turns to custard really, really quick. So in that respect, I kind of I respect what he's done by pulling out a year early.
Yeah, one of the quotes that he actually used was all or nothing. And he's come across that way, and New Zealand cricket comes across that way. They play very hard cricket based on the management and the coaching style that they've got, but a very fair and honest style, and this kind of decision kind of goes along those ethoses that he's put in place.
Yeah, it probably does. He's a different coach than you see on the international stage. He wasn't much of a player.
Yeah.
So, coaching is his actual job, and it has been for a long time. I think he first got into coaching in his mid-20s or something like that. So, if you kind of know your time's done and you're not setting yourself up for a career as a coach or in the media or as a pundit, then, full marks. He's done everything right by everyone that he works with. Can't fault him.
And it's probably fair to say it's an unprecedented success for the Blackcaps. It's the longest tenure of a coach, 6 years. And it's also probably the most successful period. Just looking at a few things here, a record equaling 13 undefeated test matches at home between 2012 and 2016. He won more test matches, one days and T20s than he lost across all formats across 6 years. That's really good success.
Absolutely. You might get some of the old boys like me saying the side in the 80s was a little bit better, but stats don't lie. Cricket has changed, and there's a lot more winning and losing as opposed to draws than there used to be. But as I said, the stats are there. He's produced results, and coaches live and die by that. So, he is, as you've rightly put out, the most successful statistical coach that we have ever had.
And, saying live and die by what you do and how you do it. He caused some controversy at the start with the whole Brendan McCullum situation and him putting McCullum as captain across 3 formats over Ross Taylor.
Yeah, and I think if you look back on that now, the decision was probably right. The way he went about it was probably wrong. Yeah. Now, that's a new coach coming into a new setup, perhaps not being quite as aware of how the media can pull things apart, chew you up and spit you out. Yeah. It proved to be the right decision. And that's all you can really say at the end of something is, was it right? Yeah. Absolutely. I think, Ross Taylor was obviously, miffed at the time. It's, a bit of a slap in the face to have the captaincy removed. Yeah. But I think even he would agree that potentially it's meant that his career is still going. Yeah, he may well have burnt out had he been skipper all that time as well.
Yeah, he's kind of having a bit of a renaissance, especially in one-day cricket over the last couple of years. I remember reading something about his eyesight. His eyesight was going, he had some operation on his eyes and he's seeing the ball better, he's hitting the ball better and scoring runs.
Which did surprise me that you'd wait till that late in your career to have an eye operation, given it's a hand-eye game. But look, outside of Kane Williamson, he is the best batsman and will probably end up as statistically the second best batsman we've ever had. Yeah. And he's probably got 2-3 good years of Test cricket in him. Yeah. That's probably another 5 to 10 hundreds, which leaves Martin Crowe sadly long behind him, and everyone else way behind him. Yeah. So, if that's as a result of the captaincy switch, I'm all for it. And McCullum changed the way New Zealand played cricket. We were a bit conservative, and now we're a side that people want to go and watch.
Yeah, aggressive with the bat, aggressive with the ball, aggressive in the field, but good-natured about it. There's a way to implement these things and still be a good guy at the end of the day. And I think everything that the Blackcaps have done over the last 6 years is within the spirit of cricket, and they don't step outside that boundary, whereas some other countries play hard, push the boundaries a little bit too far away from friendly banter and trying to win to sandpaper gate?
I was guessing you're referring to countries that are quite close to us geographically. I think that's also a byproduct of the players that we have at the time. Let's face it, Tim Southey and Trent would look bloody stupid if they were chuntering and posturing in the middle of the wicket because they're such angelic little boys.
Yeah.
But the one criticism, of course, was occasionally we got reckless, but nah, it's fun to watch.
It's fun to watch. And you look at, I keep talking about Kevin Peterson on the podcast because I just read his book again. The man averaged 50, he scored 2,300. He played the way he did, and he was successful doing it. And the Blackcaps have kind of got a similar mentality that we're going to go out there, we're going to back our abilities, we're not going to go into a shell. When I look at Mike Hesson, the one thing that's going to stick out, and it probably sticks out for most Blackcap supporters, is the Cricket World Cup 2015 in New Zealand, making it all the way to the World Cup final.
Yep.
What an achievement that was.
Oh, absolutely. And our record in big tournaments has been that we don't usually get quite that far.
Yep.
And that day at Eden Park against South Africa, I mean, anyone who was there will probably struggle to find a better atmosphere in a cricket game in New Zealand since the last World Cup in the 90s. And that was, it was one of the great nights in New Zealand cricket.
So Mike Hesson stepping down, he's gone and he's replaced Darren Lehmann. So Darren Lehmann, obviously integral part of this Australian team that's turned themselves around over the years from, they were a bit of a joke at one point when they were getting battered by the English. Lehmann came in, he did a good job turning them around, but he's turned them around into something that's not so pretty to watch. And Hesson's gone and he's working on the International Cricket Council's committee as their coaching representative. So that speaks very highly of the man.
Yep. You do sometimes wonder when New Zealanders get appointed to positions at the ICC whether or not it's the path of least resistance for the rest of them, because nobody hates us. And there are I suspect certain countries who it wouldn't matter who you put on there, that you just cannot have them because their historical rivalries with others. I think Hesson has probably earned his spot. He's proven that he knows what he's doing. He's shown that he is a fair and reasonable person. He's not one of those guys you ever hear, ranting about in the press. You never hear stuff about him, except for the fact that, he's a good bloke and he's done a good job. So, more power to him, and hopefully he gets to spend a lot more time with his family.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving on. So, that's gone on. And then in early August this year, Cricket New Zealand have come forward and they've appointed Gary Steed as the new head coach going forward. It's a 2-year deal starting September the 1st. Now, the big question for a lot of people that listen to the podcast, I think about 10% are Kiwis. Most of them are English. Who is Gary Steed?
Well, there'll be a whole lot of people in that 10% of Kiwis who listen who still wouldn't know who Gary Stead was. Cricket in New Zealand doesn't dominate our press, and it especially didn't have as much coverage back in the days when Gary was actually playing the game. But if memory serves me correctly, he still played about 100 games for Canterbury, and he would have played in an era when Canterbury was utterly dominant.
Yep.
God help us. And he would have played with a whole lot of, really, really top quality players. So to survive in that period, you've got to be tough. And back in those days, cricket was not handsomely rewarded financially in New Zealand. So to hang around for that long, you've got to have a certain passion for the game. But he has done a long and fairly serious apprenticeship, if you want to call it that, in the coaching circles. He's coached the women's team to World Cup glory. Not the one that we've just had. This was 10 years ago, I think he was. That sounds about right. He's coached Canterbury successfully, the men's version. So it's not like he's been plucked out of obscurity and said, "Here, mate, have a job." He's been in and around the system for a long time.
I'm just looking at here. 4 Plunket Shield titles with Canterbury as well within the space of about 6 years. So utter dominance, really, in his 20, 30 years that he spent at Canterbury. He's really took to it. And you're absolutely right, 101 matches for Canterbury, average of 32, almost 5,000 first-class runs, so of decent county stock, especially an average back then, in that era, averaging mid-30s.
I suspect that would translate to an average of 45 plus if you put modern wickets and modern bats and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And he went on and he played some Test cricket as well. Yep. So he made his debut against South Africa, and I had a look at the scorecard. He made a 78 in the game, and he made a 33. Decent innings. But he was facing a bowling attack of Alan Donald, Sean Pollock, Jack Callis and Lance Klusner, and left arm unorthodox Paul Adams looking down at the four bowling his left armers.
Yep.
How does that translate from the Kiwi game back in the late 90s to turning up and having White Lightning bowling at your head?
There's a certain terrifying aspect to that, and I think for our younger listeners, they don't actually realise how fearsome fast bowling was in the 90s. The modern day requirements mean that players just don't have that nasty speed anymore. They play so much that everyone's dulled it down. They've learned how to bowl 7 different slower balls and slow bouncers and all that sort of thing. Yeah. I think if you'd asked Alan Donald what a slow bouncer was, he said that was the one that was at 92 clicks, and he saved the quick one at 98 clicks for the really good batsman. Yeah. It's just a different era.
Yeah.
But a whole lot of stuff was different back then. The pitches were a bit rubbish, which helped the bowlers. The bats were half the weight and twice the width and all that sort of thing. So. As far as your playing days go, I don't think you can really compare the 90s to now. It's just different.
Completely different game. One of my best favourite cricket memories, Trent Bridge, I think it was 1998. Alan Donald bowling to Mike Atherton. Atherton gloves the ball behind. Boucher catches it, throws it in the air, and the umpire gives it not out. No referrals back in the day.
Yep.
Alan Donald sees white light just going red Ross, trying to knock Atherton's head off. He gloves one behind to Boucher, and Boucher drops the ball on the floor. Oh. Alan Donald, at the end of the over, goes through to him, slaps him on the arse, says, "Next one, mate." And I was like, in the middle of the game, in the middle of that atmosphere where you're trying to take Atherton's head off, Atherton ended up 98 not out. Just incredible professionalism and just a great guy. You don't often see that out of fast bowlers in the middle of tunnel vision.
And those two had quite a bit of previous.
Yes.
That's an old school traditional battle, which you probably don't get as much of these days because all the players know each other because of, playing in the various 2020 tournaments around the world. You don't have that bitter rivalry between player A and B that you really look forward to seeing because you'd have probably seen them being teammates in the Caribbean Premier League and the IPL and maybe a bit in the English county competition. Bygone era though.
It's a changing world. So, Gary Steed, described in the press as meticulous, a brilliant cricketing mind, excellent man management. Those are very similar traits, quite possibly, that Mike Hesson has brought in previously. Yep. Do you think that's a trained thought by Cricket New Zealand going, we've got a mould that's going to work for this country and for this brand of cricket that we've created, we want to see continuation?
I think it probably does. We're never going to have the big budget coaching salary to lure in your sort of superstars. So if you're not going to get your Stephen Flemings or your Daniel Vittoris, what do you want?
Yeah.
Mike Hesson was very successful in what he did, and those are exactly the traits that Mike Hesson had. Well organised, meticulous with his man management. Yeah. Left no stone unturned in their preparation. So, in essence, you're giving the players the absolute best opportunity to do what they do well, which is play.
Yeah.
You're not gonna. If you're a coach, do you really have to teach Kane Williamson how to play a cover drive? No, not so much. He's kind of proved that he knows how to do that. Yeah. But you want to make sure that he's given the best diet. He's given the best fitness regime, and that things like transport around the world is of a standard. Yeah. So if that's your ideal coach, then I'm all for it.
We've got it nailed down. Because there tends to be two trains of thoughts. Like there's the Mike Hesson, there's the Duncan Fletcher, who are very much power to the people, and you're an international cricketer, you're very good at what you do. I just need to make sure you are ready come game day, and I put a lot of power into your hands. And then you get people like your Andy Flowers and Peter Moores that are very meticulous, statistical driven, hands-on, always wired into cricket. And I think New Zealand have created something under Hesson and hopefully under Steed going forward that is very much the Kiwi way. It's not over-engineered. It's just be free and happy and go and play your natural game and it'll be all right.
And certainly with the playing group that we've got at the moment, that would seem to be the absolute best method. We're blessed with our, 13 to 15 top players at the moment, that they are really good and they're of international quality, which is not something we're always going to be able to say.
Yeah.
So why not go down that alley when you've got the absolute talent at your disposal?
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to what's coming up and what this group can do moving forward. Yeah. There's a couple of tough times away, but certainly looking forward to the home series.
Yeah, let's talk about the home series. So there's three countries that's coming over this summer. We've got Sri Lanka for 2 test matches, 3 one-dayers and a T20. 5 one-day internationals against India and 3 T20 internationals, and 3 one-dayers and 3 tests against Bangladesh. What do you make of the teams coming over, and how do you think the Blackcaps are going to stack up? If we start off with Sri Lanka.
We play Sri Lanka a lot.
Yes.
Always have done.
Yeah.
This is going way back in the days of, when Richard Hadley and the Crow Boys were turning out. But they're not at their strongest at the moment. And it will be very interesting to see how they play early season in New Zealand, where the tracks are, to be fair, they nibble around a wee bit.
Yep.
And there might be some prodigious swing from our bowlers. I'm hoping that the test matches are good, good hard-fought affairs. I normally take one of my holidays around test match away time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll go down, I'll take a 5-day ticket and head down to a test match. So I really hope that they don't go for 3 days.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of a waste of a holiday. One-dayers are always a bit of a lottery.
Yeah.
You can, and the T20s, you can have one player that has their day.
Yeah.
I would still think that we should be favourites, and I'd be disappointed if we didn't win all 3 of those formats comfortably.
Yeah.
But that's not because I think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I just think that Sri Lanka are on a bit of a low ebb at the moment when they're not playing in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. And then that takes us on to nicely to, so the English summer is very much centred around India. It's the Indian summer. It's the big ticket item, and India are coming out here as well, which is great for us. We get to go and see them play. 5 one-dayers, 3 T20 internationals. India's bread and butter formats.
Yeah.
What do you make of the chances the Blackcaps have got there?
They're better than a lot of people would think in the short formats. Obviously, the short formats even up the disparity in, superstars versus really good. Yeah. And we have proven in recent times that, we can hold ourselves in a fight with the Indians in the short format games. The last tour we had over there, it was 2-2 going into the last one-dayer. We turned in a stinker. Yeah. But on a different day, we could have won that. Yeah. And the previous tour was pretty much the same. The interesting thing with India will be is whether the big guns are interested. Because that's been their downfall when they've played out here before, that sometimes, and you can kind of see why, that the really big names are kind of, this is a bit of a tack on. Yeah. This is when I'd rather be at home.
Yeah. Rest period for the superstars.
Yeah. So if they all turn out, and I do hope they do, because it's great cricket and their fans bring, a different atmosphere to a New Zealand ground than we normally get. You've been here. We're a bit reserved. Yeah. Well, occasionally the whoop and a holler, but the Indians, they bring a bit of noise and a bit of colour. Yeah. So, again, if it's a tight series, that would be the best.
Okay, and then Bangladesh. So it's quite interesting. 3 subcontinent teams coming out. What do we make of the chances against Bangladesh? So Bangladesh has got 3 test matches tacked on to the end of the summer. Yeah. Hopefully it's going to be decent weather. What do you make of the chances there? If I look New Zealand, Bangladesh, I'm kind of going, I'd take the Blackcaps in the one-day series and I'd take the Blackcaps in the test series. Yeah. I look at the test matches against Sri Lanka. If the weather plays good, I look at it and go, there's a chance of a Blackcaps clean sweep across 4 test matches.
Yep. There's a genuine possibility that we could play our home summer and not lose a test match. Yep. The Sri Lankan one, yeah, something's changed. If the weather in the summer is great and the pitches are dry and hard, you got to think that the Bangladeshis are still out of their depth when it comes to 5 days.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of decent batsmen, but they've got some real young kids who just haven't played cricket in other parts of the world enough yet. But the short format game, they can turn it on occasions, and their spin bowling attack in the T20s can be very stifling. Yeah. And as followers of New Zealand cricket go, we're not the best when the ball's given a tweak.
Yeah, there's a theme between New Zealand and English cricket that's quite parallel there. We just, if someone's bowling slow, we don't know what to do. No. We don't know how to move our feet. But it is going to be a very, very interesting summer for the Blackcaps. Lots of change, lots of new players coming in. And there's one key topic that I want to talk about in terms of Test match cricket for the Blackcaps. Like, huge fan of how they play the cricket. Huge fan of how they played against England. When England were over here, they gave them a good stuffing. Openers. Again, parallels between England and New Zealand. England are struggling for an opening pair.
Yep.
I look at this Blackcaps team and I see them struggling for an opening pair. Yep. I think Tommy Latham's a really good opener and he's progressing as an international cricketer. I look at Jeetan Raval and I'm not quite sold on him being the opener for the whole summer if he fails in the first couple of tests. What are your thoughts?
This has been an ongoing question for probably the last 8 or 9 years with the Blackcaps. I agree that Jeet hasn't really absolutely nailed his chances.
Yep.
But what he has done in his career so far is he's actually stayed out in the middle for a decent amount of time.
Yep.
Most of the time.
Yep.
And if we haven't got a dominant opener who's going to average 45 to 50, I'd like to see one that can stay out there for an hour.
Yep.
I would take an hour and being out for 20 rather than 8 over 30.
Yep.
Our two best batsmen bat 3 and 4, undeniably. Yep. I'd like to give them a chance not to be facing a brand new ball on a brand new pitch with bowlers who are freshly fired up. The other vexing question is there another opener in New Zealand cricket that's really holding their hand up and demanding to be picked by sheer weight of runs?
Yep.
And the answer's no.
Yep.
Jeet did do it for several years. He was the guy putting up runs. So I think at least for this year he will be picked.
Yep.
And because it's only 2 tests against Sri Lanka first up, unless he's getting out to horrible shots, I think he will still be there at the end of the summer. But someone could come out of the woodwork and have a great first class season, and just put runs on the board to an extent that they demand to be picked. Yeah.
So fair play to him for taking control. He struggled against England in that series.
Yep.
And that's one of the most that I've seen him play. And I was like, yeah, you're struggling a little bit here. You very similar to the English openers, Jennings and Cook and David Millan in the middle. Just struggled getting his feet going early doors. There was a lot of talk when I first moved out to New Zealand about Martin Guptill as a Test match opener. And when I played cricket for Parnell, the conversation was, why can't Martin Guptill open the batting in Test cricket? He's such a dominating white ball cricketer at the top of the order, strikes the ball well, goes in and plays Test cricket, nicks off or LBW every single time. Is there ever a case that they go back towards a Martin Guptill, or do we think the Guptill train's kind of gone?
I don't think you'll ever see him at the top of the order playing for New Zealand again. It would be such a backward step for a guy that really didn't do enough the first 2 or 3 chances he had. And when chances he was dropped and then came back. His best chance of getting a Test match again would be if there's a couple of injuries and he's picked to bat 5 or 6.
Yeah.
The big difference between Test cricket and the white ball cricket, which he's proven to be good at, is there's 3 slips.
Yeah.
And the good bowlers don't have to come off after 4 overs.
Yeah.
It's a different game. And like you said, Jeet Raval was struggling against England. It's not really that shameful to struggle against Jimmy Anderson.
No, it's not.
He's got a few Test wickets. And to be fair, a lot of them will be, and I mean this with no disrespect, there'll be better batsmen than Jeet Raval.
Yeah.
Jeet Raval's main issue is that when you get a series like England, which is at the end of summer, he hasn't played any red ball cricket for potentially, I think it was like a couple of months.
Yeah.
He had an injury, so he missed the last game. So if you're a test specialist, where are you getting your opportunities to bat for 4.5 hours against a red ball in New Zealand? And the way we set up our season doesn't help him. No. He's not really a smash and bash. They picked him a couple of times for Auckland and T20 domestic cricket, but that's coming in at 4 and having a slog on a small ground.
Yep. So there has been some change in the Plunkett Shield. So Plunkett Shield is the first class system out in New Zealand. 10 games, 6 teams, play each other twice. I read something the other week saying that it's moving down to 8 games to accommodate more T20 action.
Yes, and for an old traditionalist like myself, that's sad. Yeah. But it's a financial reality. If you go to a first class game in New Zealand, they announce the crowd rather than the players because there's more players there than there are spectators. Whereas you go to a T20 game at a Sunday afternoon at Eden Park when the sun's shining and there's a decent number of people there. And more importantly, there's like kids and like families. Yeah. And if you don't get the kids interested in cricket, there is no cricket in 20 years. Yeah. So, it's just a harsh reality. Yeah. It's down to finances. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So what that means is we have to really make sure that we, put it on at the right time of the year. Yeah. So the red ball specialists are going to get some proper cricket before test matches, because otherwise we're hanging them out to dry. And if test cricket dies, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think it's very similar to the English game. You go to watch Notts play on a Thursday, there's 25 people watching, but the Notts attendances in the T20 competition are 12,000 every single night, which is phenomenal. For 3 hours entertainment, for 20 quid for your kids. It's just, they're doing a very, very good job of it. Now, I don't want to start touching on 100-ball cricket and all those silly things that I keep hearing about, but it is a realisation of the game that there could potentially be more and more of a move away from first-class cricket being, in England, 16 games or whatever it is, or 18 games back in the day, to more of maybe a 9-game schedule, and over here it's coming down to an 8. I don't think you can make it less than 8 without severely impacting the test game. Take Australia, for instance. Australia's worked quite well for a number of years on just having a hard system. They play a limited amount of games. You know more about it than me. They play 8 or 10 games. Yeah. But it's intense, and it's some of the hardest first-class cricket you can get. And if New Zealand can start to replicate some of that and get the quality out of those games and the scheduling right, there's no reason why it couldn't work. I'm
not sure we're ever going to be able to get up to the level of the Australian first-class cricket, because you're right, that was back in the day absolute kill or be killed. Yeah. But even now, because of the fact that the international schedule is so packed, and there's the Big Bash and all that there's a decent sort of amount of chatter, if you talk to Australians, that their first class system is now actually starting to not be the be all and end all that it once was. Yeah. Okay, they've got a couple of extra teams because of Sydney and Melbourne having 2 in the Big Bash, but they're filling it all with overseas imports. Yeah. Go back 20 years, the handful of imports that got to play cricket in Australia were guys like Viv Richards who could play a wee bit. I think there's some English bloke, both of them, that had a season over there. Whereas now you watch it and you're seeing guys that and you realise it's some South African that played 2 games for Joburg like last year. That's where it's going. First class cricket is not what it used to be.
It's definitely not. But let's hope for a hell of a summer for the Blackcaps. 3 wins. The ones against India, the ones I'm particularly looking forward to. But, Will, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, my friend. Anything else from yourself?
No. I've had a ball talking about cricket today. It's a rare day when I get to spend half an hour talking about cricket, which I do love. So yeah, thanks very much, and happy to come back anytime.
Wow, so that's the interview. 30 minutes. Time well spent. A cracking conversation with Will, full of in-depth information about Mike Hesson, Gary Steed, the Blackcaps. Rich, what are your takeaways about Gary Steed?
Gary Steed, like I said just before we listened to it, before I actually had a chance to listen to you and Will chat, I didn't really know much about Gary Steed, and then I had to have a little look into him. But like I said before, that's a great CV. It really is solid, isn't it? This man's he's deserving of this opportunity. New Zealand women's coached 2009 ODI, 2010 T20 World Cups with the women. Did well there. Canterbury coach, 2012. 4 titles in 4 years from 2013-14 to 2016-17. 4 titles in 4 years. That's not bad go. He was then part of the international setup, batting coach, 2016-17, which obviously during that time, New Zealand cricket had been in pretty good shape, hasn't it? You know, he's got experience. He played 5 test matches as well, as you guys were talking about. Draw in Ahmedabad, that was his only test match after looking into it. 78 of 173 balls in the Gujarati. Is it the capital? I forget now, but I've been there for a test match. I forget exactly. But yeah, really, really impressive fella. And definitely, you know, somebody that we're going to get to know a bit more about. We're going to, you know, most of the world are going to know a little bit more about who Gary Stead is as we go forward. And we might even get to know how we pronounce his surname in due course as well.
We may even get there. But yeah, he's definitely the next cab off the ranks, right? That is such an impressive record that he's been able to put together, kind of under the radar from world cricket. But New Zealand have got a thing where they do create some pretty decent coaches over the year. Hesson's been really good. You've got Fleming, you've got Vettori, you've got Shane Bond travelling the world as a bowling coach now. They've got people that are very good, and I think it's down to probably the Kiwi way, and they are very laid-back people, and they're probably very laid-back coaches, and put the emphasis onto the player, like we spoke about Mike Hesson being, hey, you guys are international cricketers, you can take care of yourself, I'm just going to get you ready for the match. Kind of like a Duncan Fletcher mould that we spoke about, and very the opposite of what a Peter Moores was when he was in charge, and Andy Flower, you know, the real statistical, analytical sort of coach. They've kind of taken a backward step from that, and it's power to the people. These guys can play cricket, see ball, hit ball, they're good players. Why not just get them in the best frame of mind and technically as ready as they can be to go and play the game? And hey, if you play the game by hitting the ball hard, go and hit the ball hard. Don't let me stop you and get out, nick it off.
Yeah, exactly, and it's true. Yeah, credit to Mike Hesson. I think he deserves a bit of a conversation, really. And you know, like you said, you know, his style of management of coaching. That's what international sport's all about. Not just cricket, football, other sports. You shouldn't be coming into an international arena needing to work on your technique. Maybe over a period of time, you know, it's the best against the best, isn't it? So after a period of time, maybe you need to make some tweaks. Maybe you do need to do things a little bit different. There might be that spinner that comes on the scene, or, you know, you might be getting out to left arm seamers, whatever it might be. There's something you need to tweak, but it's only a tweak. It doesn't need to be a fundamental rebuild. It doesn't need to be a coach or being told how to play situations. You should know enough about that. You know, you're going to have young players come in occasionally, but again, you know, you'd hope that they would be mature enough and have enough experience, even if with young age, that they can actually adapt themselves and think for themselves. That's the sign of great international cricketers for me, if they can do all those things. So it's a bit, you know, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. Brian Clough, you know, he would have been the most incredible international manager if he was given the opportunity. Thanks to the stuffy suits at the FA, that he didn't want to give him the chance, did they? But he was all about go and play. All he did was make sure people were ready mentally to go and play that game of football. Make sure that they're absolutely buzzing. You know, don't get too high, don't get too low, but just make sure you're ready to perform to the best of your ability. And that's what international cricket's about. That's probably why Peter Moores has come back and dropped into county cricket, because he was an age group coach, a county coach. He wasn't an international coach. So yeah, again, you know, huge loss, I think, for New Zealand. But Mike Hesson goes on, I'm sure, with a lot of thanks from the Kiwi cricketing population, and looking forward to see what the team can do under the new stewardship.
Yeah, one thing that kind of stuck out at me about the Mike Hesson era, and it's not so much what he's done, but you know, one of the reasons that he's stepping away from the game, he was coach of Kenya, and he had security issues being away from his family, and then here he's turned around and said he's pretty much nearing burnout. He misses his family, he needs to be at home, etc., etc. And there's a stat here, 1 year it's estimated he spent more than 300 days away from home as the Blackcaps head coach. And in terms of like the England head coach and India head coach, those guys must be on the road even more than the Blackcaps head coach at a guess. I was staggered by how many days that is in a hotel.
They wonder why, you know, players need resting. And there's a bit of a conversation going on in England at the moment, or there was a little while ago. I think results got in the way a little bit, as they tend to do when they go well. But you know, is there actually a worthwhile argument to say, well, yeah, actually, let's have a test coach and then let's have a white ball coach. Let's split those things off. The players need rest every so often. coaches, you can't do that. You can't sustain that over a period of time. Just one round of World Cup, if you like, it's over a few years, or whatever. It's going to be too much, isn't it? And to be coaching all the aspects of international cricket now, with how much 2020 is there, how much one-day cricket is, especially with the World Cup coming up again, Test cricket, I don't know how you can sustain it. And also having an involvement in selection, so you've got to make sure you're abreast of all the performers and performances of people that you're looking to bring into the setup. So that's too much. That's ridiculous, isn't it? And Lord only knows what the England and India and other coaches are doing. But I think it kind of does lend to that argument, doesn't it? The time's probably coming where international setups will start going, let's split these two things out. They're almost separate games anyway. Let's put two different coaching setups in.
I actually really, really agree with that. I've thought about it a few times over the years. I've been like, look at the IPL. You bring in IPL-specific T20 coaches that get the job done, batting, bowling, head coach of the team, etc. Why does the international arena have to be any different? You could have one overall general manager. I'm talking American football here. You could have a general manager. Then you could have a test match coach, a one-day coach, a T20 coach. And then under there you could have batting and bowling coaches specialised to each area. It's naturally the thing that should happen. And any sport that you do, it's got different facets and different things. And Test match cricket is so far removed from T20 cricket that it would just be wrong to have the same spin coach who took 500 wickets in Test match cricket and is a first-class stalwart who understands how to work people out, as opposed to an IPL era sort of spin bowler who knows how to bowl in 4-over spells. They're just completely different skill sets that the players have to have, and it would make sense for them to have specialists in each area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if football split out and you had a five-a-side team, Man United had a five-a-side league as well, I don't think Mourinho would be coach of it, would he? So, you'd be focusing on what his bread and butter, and I think it's going to come, isn't it? And I think just going back to the point we've talked about, Hesson spending 300 odd days away from home, and that's for New Zealand. That's when they probably don't play as much cricket as others. I don't have that in front of me. That's just a guess. But it has to give. Something has to give. You're going to have player burnout. We've had incidents, or whatever the word is, over the last few years or last 10 years of players, Trescothick, Michael Yardy, others that have kind of come in and had their issues. Have had issues with depression or stress-related illnesses, isn't it? So that's going to be more and more. The coaching, they're not going to be immune to things like that. So players need to have breaks. They need to be able to look ahead in the diary, look in the calendar 2-3 years ahead, and start plotting where can we actually rest people. Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, they're going strong. They're really going strong. But there's got to be times soon, especially over this winter perhaps, or over the next 12 months, where you've got to sit these boys out if they're both wanting to carry on playing English, Test cricket for England for the next few years, which I'm sure they could do fitness-wise and ability-wise. But you've got to start being sensible with it. And I think that goes for coaches as important as captains, bowlers, whoever, batsmen of international teams.
Yeah, interesting conversation. It'd be really good to get on a cricket coach, like a real high-level cricket coach, and talk coaching structures with them and where they actually think that the game is going to go in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, see their take, whether or not they do think that it's going to be a split out. So, I mean, all it'll take, I think, is a county side to actually be a bit of a trailblazer and say, do you know what, we've looked at this. Just because it's done in a certain way doesn't mean you have to continue doing it a certain way. Let's do things differently. Let's give this a go. Let's install a T20 coach. I'm not sure, maybe one of the counties like Leicestershire or Derbyshire or someone like that perhaps have done it. I forget. Just rings a faint bell now. I can't be sure. But, put someone in charge. Put a T20. Just maybe start it that and just say, right, just for the T20, I'm going to break it out. I'm going to bring somebody in just as a coach for this. And again, it gets the names in a bit, doesn't it? You go to Australia, you go to the IPL, you go to some of these other leagues. It's the specialist coach, isn't it, that is coming in. So, yeah, it'd be interesting. And coming back to the system, you could have Andrew Strauss, for example, as the overarching authority. Yeah. And under him are his two coaches, perhaps, the white ball coach and the red ball coach. And then as long as there's a joined-up picture, there's a joined-up selection to a point, everyone's feeding into the same points, I'm sure it'd work. I think it'd be pretty good, to be honest. And who knows? But anyway, we've Mike Hesson has got us going on a right tangent, hasn't he? And it's been. I think that's what it's great though. You have these conversations. Will was really, really interesting. Loved his accent as well. I've got to say that. There's something just novel about the Kiwi accent, mate. Sorry. Thankfully, you haven't got one too strong yet. Yeah, exactly. It's something we can have a little bit of a giggle at, but we do it because we like it. It's just different. But yeah, it was really informative, and it really opened up because kind of some of these conversations that will no doubt keep going from there.
Yeah, nice. It's really great stuff. And, we've got the Plunket Shield coming up in about a month's time, maybe even less than that. It's the 21st of September now, so about 3 or 4 weeks' time. That's almost a month. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get another Kiwi on, maybe Will again. Let us know in the comments. If you want to see more Will Cavanagh, let us know in the comments. That's the way to do it. Vote Will. Thumbs up for Will. Everything. For Will, and we'll have a bit of a Plunket Shield look at, because it was a really interesting competition last year. Went all the way down to the wire. And we want to keep providing you worldwide cricket as it keeps coming and going. Rich, anything else you want to discuss on Blackcaps cricket before we wrap it up today and say a big thanks to Will for jumping on the podcast?
I don't think there is. I think that it's just going to be an exciting future for them, isn't it? It'd be nice to see people like Lockie Ferguson and Adam Milne get a go soon. But then how do they get in the team? Exciting talents, quick bowlers, not many around in world cricket, but where do they get in?
Definitely, mate, definitely. Great stuff, guys. Will, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You guys have been legends as always. Till next time.